Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I've got Pastor Dan on the phone. He's got newspaper articles, and we're going to talk about them today in light of Bible prophecy. Welcome back, Pastor Dan.
Well, I'm really glad to be back with you. And, you know, I was accused by a fellow that listens to the radio programs that sometimes I poke you in the eye with these newspaper articles, so to speak. Jokingly, he said, anyway. And,
it's probably because you say something I don't have the answer to.
Well, he said it makes it more interesting that way. Sometimes I make you think. And I said, well, you know, I enjoy them. But anyway, let's get on with the first one. Iran is building missile sites in Syria. And this came from the Washington Free Beacon. Iranian military leaders admitted this week to building and operating missile manufacturing plants in Syria, where it was also revealed that Tehran is helping to build a secret nuclear facility. An Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps commander stated in a recent interview that the country's supreme leader ordered forces to build and operate missile plants in Syria, where Iran continues to fight on the behalf of the embattled leader Bashar al-Assad, according to regional media reports. IRGC aerospace commander touted Iran's capabilities and bragged that Iran has gone from importing most of its military hardware to producing it domestically, as well as for the regional partners such as Assad. A country such as Syria, which used to sell us arms, was later on to buy our missiles, he was quoted as saying earlier this week by the Young Journalist Club. Right now, the missile manufacturing firms in Syria are definitely built by Iran. What do you think about that, Sam?
I've made 32 DVDs over the 21 years I've been in radio, and it's reaching the point to where I can no longer remember all of the DVDs, and I find myself sometimes having to search through the DVD, saying, I know I made a DVD, I know I talked on that, but I just can't find it. Well, so this is going to be something that we have to remember, guys. You got to remember this. And I've said it several times, but let this burn into your memory, because there's a lot of people out there that have some crazy, I'll say it a little bit more kindly, some very funny ideas about Bible prophecy. But it's there in the Bible. The problem is, as I said to someone earlier today, the less a person knows about Bible prophecy, the sooner they think Jesus is coming. The more they know about Bible prophecy, the more they know he can't come immediately. He's not coming soon. Now, in my case, I don't know, I've been studying Bible prophecy for 35 years, doing a radio and TV program on it for 21 years, 154 guests, making 320 DVDs. In other words, I've been around the block a time or two. So, the whole point, talking about Syria, is you have to understand that Jesus is not coming until there's a world government. So says the statue of Daniel 2, and so says the fourth beast of Daniel chapter 7. So, until we see world government, Jesus can't come. But what is coming is the third beast. We've talked about this. That's the leopard. It has 4 heads, 4 wings of a fowl, and essentially it's going to be 4 Islamic nations that work together to go against Israel. So when you hear these sorts of things about Syria, Egypt, Libya, Iraq, Iran, all of those nations forming this caliphate, understand when that caliphate forms, you can now say in your lifetime you saw the third beast form. When we have the caliphate, when we have the third beast in place, then you can probably see World War III take place, because that's when all of the Gentiles will be removed from Jerusalem. That's also when Israel is going to be attacked. She is going to be victorious over her enemies. She will, now that she's back on her land, she will never, there's numerous scriptures, never, ever, 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 ever be kicked out of her land again. She'll never, ever lose another military battle. So I would say if the rulers, the leaders of Israel were to come say, hey, Stan, what's your opinion? I would say, tell the world, get it on, buddy. Come one, come all, because I got a carte blanche. I got a guarantee I am not going to be kicked out of my land. I'm not going to lose another battle. So if you want me, come and get me, because you're only going to lose. I'm going to get your land. Israel is going to get back all of their land. And I looked again from another way just today. That is going to be basically the surrounding nations around Israel, save Syria. She will not get back Syria. Syria was never part of her land, but she's going to get back All of her land, that's from the Euphrates to the Nile, probably including all of Saudi Arabia. And that's including Kuwait. Okay, that's including all of the oil. So she's going to be getting most of the oil from the Middle East. And Israel is going to be raised up like an herb very quickly. All of the desert south area, that whole Negev area, the southwest end of the Dead Sea, all of that desert down there, it's all going to turn to a Garden of Eden. As you recall, Lot chose the southern area. He is southern in terms of Sodom and Gomorrah, is where he lived. He chose that because the Bible said it was well watered. Well, it's not well watered today. It's a desert, but the Bible says numerous places. You can go to Ezekiel 36 for one, and it says that it will be turned to the Garden of Eden. So when we see Syria working together with other caliphate nations like Iran, like Iraq, when we see these other nations working together, and essentially they're working to destroy Israel, that's their whole heart. But you have to understand, Genesis 12:4 says, I will bless them that bless you, I will curse them that curse you, talking to Abraham and to the descendants, meaning Israel. And so when a nation comes against Israel, it's not going to be good. And that's what these nations are doing. They're setting up to perform World War III. We see China growing. That's World War III. We see Russia growing its military also. That's for World War III. We also see America scaling back in its war efforts, cutting budgets, laying off people. That's part of what's going to happen to us in World War III. We're going to lose World War III, and there's going to be a great time when Israel is going to be the great victor coming out of World War III. And she's going to be raised up to be one of the richest, wealthiest nations on earth for about, all right, now this is some new information I haven't released before. In our Bible study, I just ran across this. It was found in Ezekiel 29, verse 11. Now, it's talking specifically about Egypt here. It mentions Egypt by name, 4 or 5 times through these scriptures. And it says, no foot of man shall pass through it, meaning Egypt, nor foot of beast shall pass through it either, neither shall. Now, listen to this. You want to know how long World War III is? Or how long it is World War III to the return of Jesus? This is your answer. Neither shall it be inhabited for 40 years. Now, I have not done an exhaustive search, but I don't think I have to, about whether Egypt has ever been totally uninhabited for a 40-year period. And I don't think in history there's ever a time when Egypt has been totally uninhabited. It goes on to say the cities will be laid waste. They shall be desolate 40 years. That's the second time it says 40 years. Then the next verse says, at the end of 40 years will I gather the Egyptians from the people whither they were scattered, and I will bring again the captivity or the gathering of Egypt. Well, there's never been a time when the Egyptians has been scattered out of Egypt. And it says that they're going to be a basis of kingdom. And there's never been a time when they've been at the very bottom. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a time when under the Pharaohs, they were at the very top. But they've never been at the very bottom. All of that is unfulfilled prophecy. Now, what that is saying is that if this is a time when Egypt is uninhabited and it is caused, if it is caused in World War III, and it's not happened yet, so I have to assume it's got to happen pretty soon. So if it's World War III, and if they are gathered again just before the end, and we know that they are, that means that from World War III to the return of Jesus has to be a minimum of 40 years. I don't like it either, okay? I wish Jesus would return in about, next 5 minutes. but the problem is, guys, you've got to stay with the Scriptures. Scriptures 3 or 4 times, 40 years, Egypt. And it says in another place, they will be clean as the top of a rock. That has never, I'm talking of a rock as in a hard place, all right? Never happened in Egypt. Yet it's going to happen. So I can take that. It must be World War III when that happens. And it must last till near the end, which is the time of Jesus returns, meaning that from World War III to when Jesus returns is a minimum of 40 years. I've been saying for a long time, Jesus is not coming in until at least 2040, 2050, someplace out in that ballpark. And we know that the Bible says, Matthew 24, essentially put it in simple terms, that Jesus is not going to return until all of Israel, the fig tree, that Jesus will return before all of the people that were alive when Israel became a nation in 1948. That generation, not all of the people that were alive then, will die before Jesus returns. How long does a person live? Well, there's folks out there that are 120 years old. So if you take 1948, you'd add 120 years onto it. Guys, we're talking about we could potentially have a lot of years. I don't like to say that either. But I have to stick with the Bible. I have to say with, what God says. And to us, today is 24 hours, but to God, a day is 1,000 years. 1,000 years is a day. So his time clock moves a whole lot slower than ours. Now, the whole point is, Syria, what is really going on? She is arming for World War III. All of the nations, there is a giant military buildup. All you have to do is you don't even have to have a good brother, Pastor Dan, and his news service to see it. You don't have to look too far to see that the world is building up for World War III. So when I hear about missiles in Syria, I know what they're doing. They're preparing for World War III. And they're going to go against Israel, and they're going to lose. Pastor Dan, back to you.
Brother Eckert, if they want to see the emails that I send you, all they got to do is go to the Prophecy Club website and click on the blog spot, Prophecy Club blog spot, and they'll see those posted on the blog spot because I post them there as I send them to you.
Okay, well, let me take just a second.
That I don't post, but...
Oh, okay. I got to take it just a second and throw in a big plug because, guys, I don't think there is anybody else that does a better job than what Pastor Dan, which is why he is doing this with me, because you're getting the very best of the best of the best of the inside news, because he is a great searcher of news. And if you want to have the very best news that is related to Bible prophecy, tell us again, where do we go to?
You go to the Prophecy Club website, and there's a link right on there for Prophecy Club Blogspot. And that's where all the news is at. And believe me, you'll get your fill of it because I post a lot. Anyway, let's move on to the next article. Obama blasted for being nowhere man in Paris. The only Western leader who refused to call Islamic terrorism. Anyway, it was a rare moment in history. More than 40 leaders of the Western world came together to make a statement against Islamic terrorism, marching with millions of French citizens through the streets of Paris. But it was the absence of one leader that continues to grab the bulk of the media attention. From Senator Ted Cruz in Texas on right to Paris Morgan, which is a real leftist, on the left, many expressed outrage that neither President Obama nor any of his top aides made the trip to Paris to join the dozens of world leaders in Sunday's anti-terrorism rally. Vice President Joe Biden stayed at home in Delaware. Secretary of State John Kerry was on assignment in India. Attorney General Eric Holder was in Paris but did not participate in the march. In fact, he left that Sunday just before the march. In an op-ed in Time magazine, Cruz said the decision by Obama to blow off Paris was really very dangerous. Many of our allies gathered together in Paris yesterday as an admirable display of determination. Our president should have been there because we must never hesitate to stand with our allies. The attack on Paris, just like the previous assaults on Israel and other allies is an attack on our shared values. The other thing is what was being condemned here. Militant Islam was on the plate here for being condemned. Face it, this is the president who at the United Nations said we must never allow the word of the prophet to be smeared. And I'm paraphrasing, he said. This is the president who wrote that one of the most beautiful sounds he's ever heard is the morning call to prayer at a mosque in a city where Islam is being practiced. And this is the guy who called all of us that we were a nation of cowards for refusing to have an honest discussion on race. This was from Rush Limbaugh. Well, there's an honest discussion on Muslim extremism, and Eric Holder bugs out too. He doesn't want to be any part of it. He's acting like all filled with cowardice as well about this. In two separate instances yesterday morning, the Attorney General who was in Paris refused to follow the lead of France and declare the U.S. is at war with radical Islam. French brothers and sisters, as they came together in an inspirational way, we should have stood with them. What do you think's up with Obama?
Well, I was on a radio program last Monday night, and it was regarding this local ordinance issue that we're having here in the Plano area. And the pastor said, well, what do you think about Obama? Why isn't he standing up against this Paris issue with these terrorists? And I said, okay, so you're asking me why a communist Muslim is not going to protest Muslim or Islam? And he laughed and said, I see your point. Okay. I've said all along here, guys, for a long time, that Obama is, in my opinion, a closet Muslim, a closet communist. Now, Muslim meaning he wants to turn America into a Muslim nation. Communist means he wants it to be a communist-based nation where the government rules everything. Now, why do I say that? Well, I found a couple of proofs of what I'm saying without having to do too much research. Let me read it. Acts of preferentialism for Islam. February 2012, the Obama administration makes apologies for Qurans being burned by the U.S. military. October 2011, Obama's Muslim advisors blocked Middle Eastern Christians access to the White House. August 2010, Obama speaks with great praise of Islam and condescendingly of Christianity. August 2010, Obama went to great lengths to speak out on multiple occasions on behalf of building an Islamic mosque at Ground Zero, while at the same time he was silent about a Christian church being denied permission to rebuild at that same location. April 2010, Christian leader Franklin Graham was disinvited from the Pentagon's National Day of Prayer event because of complaints from the Muslim community. April 2010, the Obama administration requires rewriting of the government documents and a change in administration vocabulary to remove terms that are deemed offensive to Muslims, including jihad, jihadist, terrorist, radical Islam. By the way, I don't think we should call them radical Islam or radical Muslim. They're not radical. They're simply following their book, okay? They're not radical. Don't call them radical. Don't call them terrorists. Don't call them extremists. They're not extreme. They're simply doing what the book says. May 2009, while Obama does not host any National Day of Prayer event at the White House, he does host White House iftar dinners in honor of Ramadan. 2010, while every White House traditionally issues hundreds of official proclamations and statements on numerous occasions, this White House avoids traditional biblical holidays and events with regularity, recognizes major Muslim holidays as evidenced by its 2010 statements on Ramadan, and then it has some other words I'm not even going to try to attempt to pronounce here. So, is Obama a Muslim? You don't have to look too long to find out. Yes. Communist? You don't have to look too long to find out. Yes. Okay. So that's what we have in the White House. And I heard a prophecy the other day, and maybe I'll get to telling you more about it. But this particular prophecy said that Obama would never leave the White House. Yeah, not good news. Now, with all of that, I also need to give a disclaimer. I love America, and I love the government of this nation, and I respect the office of the President of the United States. But unfortunately, there's some things that I disagree with, and we're still allowed to speak out about those things that we disagree with. With all respect, sir. Back to you, Pastor Dan.
Really amazing stuff. Let me throw something out there. All of these riots that have been going on, protesting, the blacks being mistreated. Well, Obama's number one supporter, liberal billionaire George Soros, was revealed today that he is, in fact, the one giving the money to these groups to do that. In fact, he has donated over $33 million this last year to groups that are pushing these activists forward, which is Obama's agenda. Anyway, moving right along. Obama unveils cybersecurity proposals. Cybersecurity threats are urgent and growing danger. Well, Barack Obama unveiled new cybersecurity measures on Tuesday amid warnings from privacy campaigners about unnecessarily broad legal immunity that could put personal information at risk in the wake of the attacks like the Sony Pictures hack. Just one day after Pentagon's own Twitter account was compromised and Obama pushed a 30-day window for consumer security breaches, his administration was hoping the proposed legislation would toughen the response of the private sector by allowing companies to share information with the government agencies, including NSA, which the White House admitted were overlapping issues, allowing them to share with the NSA. Okay, back to you. I bet you got something to say.
Yes, sir. and I think that Maurice Sklar really is a prophet, and I really believe this next 3 paragraphs I'm about to read are really from God. So if you want to know where the internet is really heading, this is where it's really going. He said, in this vision, I saw the earth from outer space. As I watched it, began to see what looked like neon lights began to appear in hexagon patterns. It started from the North American continent, then spread out across Europe and then around the world. The closest way I can describe it is that it looked like white laser lights that were traced in approximately 1 mile hexagon patterns around the earth like an electronic spider web. When the lights finally stopped tracing around the earth, I looked and the whole earth was wrapped in this electronic grid like a geodesic dome. Then the Lord spoke to me and said, this is what is shortly going to take place. There is an electronic web. By the way, he was given this in 1985, guys. Okay. I think that's either before or right at when the internet was starting. So it certainly was not something recent. Anyway, the Lord spoke to him and said, there is an electronic web that will encircle the earth like this. It will unite the whole world under the Antichrist system. Did you hear that? It will unite the whole world under the Antichrist system of the end-time Babylon. At first, it will bring great blessings and prosperity. That's where we are right now. It will seem like everyone is coming together and a new age is dawning for mankind. I looked again and I saw the earth from space and this electronic web around it once more. Then I saw the continent of Europe, the hexagon from each nation began to grow dark and became opaque. It looked like black smoke rose up, and one after another, each hexagon began to go smoky gray, then black. After a few seconds, I could no longer see Europe at all. Then this began to spread out rapidly across Asia and Africa, finally Australia, China, even America were completely blotted out. I could only see the oceans. Then the islands of the seas became black. Finally, the entire earth was in darkness. Even the blue oceans disappeared. I felt such evil and hopelessness. I heard the cries of millions of souls on the earth that were trapped in this darkness. Then the Lord spoke to me again and said, do you see this? Do you know what this is? I replied, no, Lord. He said, this, now listen close, this is the fullness of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is what Adam chose for all mankind in the Garden of Eden, instead of union and life with me. They could have eaten from the tree of life instead, and this never would have happened. In other words, the internet, in my opinion, is going to be that entity that links every purchase around the globe so that no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast. It is also that entity that the clone, the half man, half machine, the half man, half computer, called the image of the beast, which the Antichrist will erect in the temple, and that image will speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast, should be killed. That image, I believe, is going to be man-made, the Bible says, and I believe it's going to be linked in through the internet into all human knowledge, hence, tree of knowledge. And it's going to say, look, this got all knowledge, and this guy over here, the Antichrist, this is the guy everybody got to worship. Everybody got to have one God, and this has got to be the God. Pastor Dan, back to you.
Well, just a thought on the internet, Stan. You know, most people don't generally realize that everything is going to be soon hooked up to the internet. I mean, including your icebox. They're going to be able to tell how many times you open your icebox and maybe even what kind of ice cream that you get out. But seriously, everything, every piece of electronic equipment they already have smart meters. They like the electric company here try to get us to take a smart meter. Well, I turned it down. There will be a time that I can't, but it's a way to, again, control you. But what do you think about that? With everything connected to the internet, how could you hide?
I have to tell you, as I've told you many times out there, folks, I play racquetball. And we had a pretty lean Christmas, and this was about all I got for Christmas, and my son got this for me, but it's called a Fitbit. It's a little rubber thing that goes around my left wrist, and it actually tells me what my heart rate is. Like, for example, I can push a button right now. It tells me my heartbeat is at 73 beats per minute. and it's 2:29 in the afternoon. I'm making this. I've already made 3,198 footsteps today, and I've gone 1.51 miles. Now, get this. When I go and play racquetball, I squeeze in on the button and hold it for a second, and it starts monitoring and actually timing it. When I get back home, then it can either send the information to my cell phone or to my computer. And it tells how long I played, what my heartbeat was, my average heartbeat, how many steps I took, how far I actually traveled. And I thought, what if this was all part of some kind of an injection, a computer system where not only, and by the way, this can monitor, I don't have that particular version, but there is one of these Fitbits that can actually monitor where you are and how long you traveled or jogged or whatever it might be from a GPS. So try to imagine, what if this injection, this chip, whatever, a time when they not only can they measure your heartbeat, where you are, what you've been doing exactly, every internet site you visit, how much is in your refrigerator, what the temperature is in your house, can maybe even listen to you. Who knows how advanced this is going to get? As I already said, if Jesus doesn't return for, say, another 50 or 60 years, ask yourself, where will technology be in 60 years? Look back to where it was 60 years ago. 60 years ago, we were just really coming into the age of automobiles. Where will it be 60 years down the road? And it's doubling them now. About the entire accumulated knowledge of the world is doubling about every 2 years. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. Do you think you could lose your salvation? Oh, no, I can hear you right now. No, not me. I know my Bible. I love Jesus. I go to church. Not me. Let me read 2 Thessalonians beginning at 2:8. And then shall that wicked be revealed, then I'll skip down, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness. It's saying that Satan is coming with power, signs, lying wonders, and a great deception. And then verse 11 says, and for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. I have to tell you, I thought this Error in the Church was going to be a really good series, but now that I have listened to 9 of the 10 DVDs, brothers and sisters, I have to say, if you want to keep your salvation, I'm going to say it that strong, okay? If you want to keep your salvation in the day of testing, in the day of great delusion and deception, you better have got this 10 DVD set called Error in the Church. Now, why do I say it so strongly? I'm saying I'm a pastor, okay? I grew up in church. I've started 3 churches, and yet I had no idea of some of this stuff. I'm going to say that if you don't get this, you could very well fall into the deception that is coming. I'm talking about the deception that's in the church. It's that desperate. I beg you. I implore you. What can I say? It is that good. If you've ever believed anything I've said, get this set. Error in the Church. 10 topics: mysticism, New Age in the Christian Church, Kundalini Spirit, Chrislam, Seeker-Friendly, Emergent Church, New Reformation Church, or Kingdom Now Theology, Hyper Grace Movement, G12, Tazy Worship, Tangible Kingdom Movement, False Christ, and What Else Is Wrong. 10 DVDs valued at $300. We're asking a pre-order gift offer of $180. Now, would you give $180 to know that you are not going to be deceived? You won't fall away? You won't lose your salvation? Guys, I mean, I have to say, it's that serious. Call Prophecy Club, 785-266-1112. 785-266-1112. Error in the Church. You'll be glad you did.